Okay, maybe. Should be. All right, says I am live now. Um, so I just need to figure out where this chat stream is real quick. If you'll give me just a minute, I'm gonna pull this thing out and get the old chat screen off, the new one on. So just give me just a couple moments here. Um, gonna see about fixing this thing. We'll see if it's just gonna take me a second here because I didn't think it was gonna work, but you know, went for it anyway. All right, so y'all can now actually see me, maybe. If so, that's awesome. It's good to finally have this thing working. Hopefully we can get this thing rolling. I wanted to start this off with giving you guys a look at what the changes are to AP and AP exams and College Board testing in general. Kind of go through what I know about what's going on with the schools, and um, and then from there, if we have time, we'll do maybe a little bit of pre-cal just because we can. So I kind of wanted to start you off, guys, talking about what's going on with College Board and the and what they're kind of doing with what's going on with the COVID-19. And they've got this great website out there. I'll put it into the description afterwards since I've kind of had to start a whole new stream to get this going. But basically, you can see that they have changed how they are doing AP exams. If you haven't seen this already, I highly recommend you search for it. This website right here, apstudents.collegeboard.org/coronavirus-updates, and you can see that they are going to be giving live and on-demand AP courses for free. I'm more on that in just a minute, and they're going to be testing from home. There is no school testing now for the College Board for AP exams. So for each exam, they are going to be releasing two different testing dates. They're going to release these dates on April the 3rd. I know my course that y'all are taking with me is not an AP course, but I know y'all are in AP courses. At the very least, if you're a sophomore, you're taking A push, and for juniors, you've got a full load. So, what I wanted to show you is what they're planning on doing. They're developing for every single exam. They're going to be making 45-minute free response questions, 45-minute free response question exams. So, for a push, that's probably going to be, I assume, that's your DBQ stuff. I don't really know what the letters mean. Document based questions. I'm going to throw that out there. But for a course like AP Calculus, one I'm more familiar with, that's going to mean the ones that you have to show your work. They say they can do it on any sort of device. I'm thinking for something like A push, you probably could do it on a computer. For something that's math related, you're probably going to end up needing a sheet of paper, and you're going to have to take a picture of it or scan in your work at the end. They haven't released full details on this, so like I said, most of those details are going to come out on April the 3rd. But if you keep scrolling down this page, you can see that these free AP courses, they are listed out by topic. So if you come down here in the bottom, so let's say you're taking AP US History, you can click this little drop down box, and it's going to show you exactly what topics they are doing live streams on or have already done a stream on to help cover those sorts of things. They did one this morning talking about contextualizing the period 8 in the A push stuff. So that's kind of going in from the on the student side, but there's also an update page that's for schools. And I wanted to show you that because the one for schools gives some a little bit more information in here about what's actually going to be covered on the exam, and I think that's really important. Um, what you need to know is that they are going to allow kids to cancel their exams at no charge. So if you signed up for an AP exam and then something happens between now and we're getting closer to time where you don't feel comfortable taking that exam, you can get your money back for that exam. Now, I don't know how that process is going to work. I'm not the bookkeeper, nor am I the school official for our school about this. But if you're interested in getting your money back instead of taking an AP exam, you will have that option. Also, they are reducing the amount of material in each AP course. So to kind of keep going with what I said before, let's go down to U.S. history. In U.S. history, they are only going to be covering units 1 through 7. So what that means is they are not covering the last 2 units in the course. So that means if you come into the AP course page, you go down to the history department and you find U.S. history, and you follow this along, you can kind of come in and you can be able to find their course and exam description. You can find this on any AP page. When you open that up, you can see in U.S. History, Unit 8 and Unit 9 are the periods from 1945 to 1980 and the period from 1980 to present. Those are not going to be covered on the AP U.S. History exam, for example. So all the AP exams have been cut down to size. They're all over less material. There are no more multiple choice parts on the exam. I know a couple people here in Computer Science A, they're only covering units 1 through 7, not units 8 through 10. If you're in Computer Science Principles, there is no end of course exam. There is only going to be the performance tasks that we did, and they have extended the deadlines for those until May 26th. So they're going to be putting out more information on here. I would find this page, this AP Central page, and I would look into this and see if you can find out for any of the AP exams that you're taking, if you can find out what they have kept into the course and what they are getting rid of in the course by looking at this particular page that's done for schools. I think that's going to be really useful to y'all and kind of give you the information you need, know what to study, know what to be looking for, and know how to prepare. Since they're going to be having you guys do these things from home, um, and then kind of sending them your work. For those of you who are taking traditional courses that would be not art or computer science principles, you're going to have to think about can you do all of your information, all of your work through some sort of word processor, or is it something that you're going to need to be able to show more written work to be able to deliver your answers? And when you're considering that, that's going to let you know whether or not you're going to need to be writing these things out by hand and then taking their picture, or if you're going to be doing it all online. Just as a heads up, because I don't want anybody to get in trouble, they are paying very close attention to exam security. They are going to give you 2 possible options of test taking times, an exam date 1 and exam date 2, but they can very easily catch you if you were cheating. So please make sure that you don't work together, you don't work in the same room, you don't try to share stuff. I think they're going to be having lots of different versions of tests. I think they're going to be checking things for authenticity. So y'all be really, really careful about how you go about doing these AP exams. Are there any questions about the AP exams? I may not be able to answer them, but if you've got questions about it, I'd be happy to try to answer it now, kind of while you're sitting here before I move on to the next topic. So anything y'all want to specifically know about the AP exams? Okay, I'm not seeing anything get asked, but feel free to throw it out there if you've got one. But just for one more quick thing, oh, that's a good question, Mason. So, are they graded the same? So they are going to still be graded on a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 scale. We don't know what that scale will be from year to year. I'm going to guess that they are going to grade it with the same level of scrutiny as they normally would. I mean, they are cutting down the material that's on the exams, and they're cutting down the length of the exam. So my guess is they might almost even be a little bit harsher on their grading. Probably though end up being equal just given the circumstances. Um, but they are going to be grading these things the same as a normal AP exam. You shouldn't expect to see them graded differently. For people in calculus, like for my kids on the BC exam, they're actually normally getting possible credit for two different college courses. So for that one, the grading is a little bit different. But for the typical AP class, you will not see any difference in the way they are graded, as far as I am aware. We'll have more information on that on April 3rd when they start putting out a little bit more stuff about it. But so kind of keep your eyes peeled on April 3rd or 4th. You might want to try to pull up these websites and see what you have. You also might want to reach out to your teachers after that date, after that April 3rd date, any of your AP class teachers, and kind of see what they have learned. Let's see, Emma. Um, yeah, that's a great question. How are they going to fit 6 or 7 units into a 45-minute short answer? They're probably not, um, is the short answer to that. So they're probably going to, if you look down here, let's say you're taking AP chemistry, there's 1 through 7, but not doing 8 and 9, for example. They've only got 45 minute, question or worth of time here. There's no way they can fit in everything in all of those units. So what you're going to see is they're going to choose. It's going to be whatever like your in your particular AP exam. Whatever the part is that is not multiple choice is going to be a lot like that section. And so you can see those are normally broader questions. They kind of mix. Sometimes at least for calculus, they kind of mix topics. Maybe for chemistry, they might mix topics. But for history, they're likely going to be picking a few different time frames, and you're going to be going on those. What they're saying is that you can go ahead and know that they will not be covering any information from whatever units in this particular course that they've decided to cut off. So, for example, European history is cutting off units 8 and 9. Computer science A is cutting off units 8 through 10, stuff like that. So they are trying to cut off the last roughly 25% of the course to kind of help cover what is available to people now. So yeah, my guess, that's a really good question about how they're going to do the AP Lang exam. My guess is the definitive answer for that is going to come when they fill in these asterisks right here. So you can see right here they've got these asterisks. This first asterisk, this column, this first column that's after the units 8 and 9, you can see that that is exam question types. So what they're going to tell you, you can see here they've already said what they're going to do for art design, but on April 3rd, I think you're going to see, for example, for English language, I think you're going to see what it actually is that they expect you to be able to do. And once you get to that point, like once we get to April 3rd and we have that information, I think that's when you're going to be able to make clearer decisions about whether or not that exam is a good thing for you to attempt to do. I don't know if for English Lang, if they're just going to go down to one essay, that makes sense because you've got 3 essays in 2 hours. But um, but it yeah, so let's see, 2 hours, 120 minutes. So each one's about 40 minutes. I guess that seems right. So yeah, that seems like maybe only one essay. So that's kind of frustrating, I guess. Mason, yeah, this will actually be on the channel when I'm done. It'll automatically save there, so you should be able to find that information at the end. Okay, I kind of wanted to talk, before we get into new stuff, and if y'all have more AP questions, feel free to throw them up there. I'd be happy to try to answer what I can. I know this time is full of a lot of uncertainty and a lot of conflicting information out there, but when it comes to school, I know that there are some schools now that are starting to put out packets for kids, and I don't know what our school's plan will be in the long term, but as of right now, at least through April the 3rd, there is no material that we can give you a grade for. We can offer you enrichment activities. I can teach you new things. I can offer you things that for you to go ahead and start working on some stuff, but none of those things are going to be graded at this point in time. I guess it is possible that we would end up going, if we go back to school this school year, although I think that's becoming more and more unlikely. Um, but if we do go back to school this school year, it is possible that some of those things could become graded, or it's possible that after April 3rd, our school system comes up with a way for them to feel like access is equitable and they can provide resources for all kids to continue to be educated throughout the end of the year. Um, but for now, I would just assume that for now your school is on hiatus, that there's material out there that I would keep up with, especially if it's an AP course. um, and I'm going to be putting material out there for y'all just to kind of get you ready for AP calculus. I do not want you to feel like you're behind, so we're going to do a really short unit on polar functions, which will help you for those that will eventually take calculus 2 or BC calculus. And then we're going to move into stuff that's all going to be things preparing you for calculus in the fall. We're going to talk about limits and derivatives again, but we're going to do them more robustly. So that's kind of where I am. And until we hear otherwise, we're just going to proceed as if school isn't back, but I need to make sure that you are in the best position possible going forward. So if you got questions about how school is proceeding right now, I think I've given you what I know, but I'd be happy to try to answer the questions you have. But with that being said, I'm going to attempt now to switch over to talk a little bit about some polar stuff just for a few minutes, and then we'll end this thing. Okay, so it's gonna get a little crazy for a second while I switch over scenes. So here we go. All right, so um, as you guys can see, the next thing we were going to talk about was polar functions, and I kind of wanted to give you an idea of what a polar function was, and then we'll just see how far we get. I probably won't do this for much more than maybe 10 minutes, and then we'll get out of here. But you've been dealing with thanks, Oliver. We've been dealing with rectangular coordinate systems for most of your life in middle school and high school, and probably even in elementary school. You know, you've got an x-axis, you have a y-axis. We just dealt with a z-axis for a little while when we were dealing with some 3D stuff, but mostly we're dealing with x and y-axis, and you've dealt with things in a rectangular coordinate system. Why do they call it that? Well, because the way we define points is by going left and right and going up and down. So by taking these directions, left and right and up and down, and turning them into points, we have this system that is defined by rectangles. Now, the polar coordinate system is another coordinate system. It is another way to define points, also functions. And for that, we've got basically two things. We have this pole. So this is the center. Think about looking at the top of the Earth on a globe. We have certain amounts of distance away from the pole. So those are like your distance away from the center. And then you have different angles away from the pole. So the polar axis is the ray that goes in what is normally the positive x direction, or 0 degrees. And we have distances out. So for example, this is 0 degrees going out, however far. This might be 45 degrees going out however far, 60 degrees, 120 degrees, or maybe we could call that 2 pi thirds, right? Because we have both radians and degrees that we might talk about. So when we're defining a point in polar, we have an r for its distance away from the pole. So r is your distance. Oh geez, just pretend that says distance. And then we have our angle. All right, so those are how we're going to define things in polar. So let's talk about how we would actually graph one of these points. So if you're talking about graphing this point 245, I'm going to come up to my pole. I'm going to go out to my ring that is 2 away, and I'm going to go in the direction of 45 degrees. So here at 45 degrees, or pi fourths, There is my point A. B is at, ooh, this one's defined differently. Notice that the radius on this one is negative 1.5. So one thing to kind of realize is, let's say that I'm at 0 degrees here. So let me go undo that. Let's say we're at 0 degrees here. And when we're at 0 degrees, all right, we've got both a positive direction, 0, 2, 4. And we also have a negative direction, -2, -4. So to go in the negative, if I said 0 degrees, right, and -2, that's going to be going backwards away from the 0 direction. It's going to be going in the negative direction. So when we're talking about this -1.5 and 2 pi thirds, there are notes on the Google Drive. Yes, there are. If you go into the Google Drive for chapter, I think this is 8, but it could be 9. Actually, it's chapter 9. So if I want to go to 2 pi thirds, I go towards 2 pi thirds. That's my positive direction. My negative direction goes away from 2 pi thirds, and I want to go -1.5. So I'm going to go down. There's about 1. There is 1.5. So there is B. So this is the 2 pi thirds line extends this way. Here's the positive direction. There's where +2 is, +4, +1, and here is -1, -2, -3, -4. Okay, so we wanted to go in the negative direction. There's my point. We called it point B. Point C is at 3 and -30 degrees. So -30 degrees, we know that's equal to 330 degrees, or that's equal to 11 pi 6, or we could go clockwise 30 degrees from the 0 direction. Go out 3, that's out to here, and then here is point C. Okay, so hopefully that makes some sense about how to graph a point. If you got questions about that, you can toss them up there. I can go back if I've already moved on. I think there's a little bit of delay from when I'm speaking to when you see it, so maybe a 5 or 10 second delay. So, like I said, I'll be happy to go back and talk about it. All right, so let's talk about multiple representations of the same point. So because we might have seen this last one, point C, we defined as 3 -30, but I could have also defined that as 330 degrees. So I could have defined that as the same. So there are actually an infinite number of ways to determine how to define a point in polar. There is not that kind of a lack of uniqueness in rectangular coordinates. In rectangular coordinates, there is only one way to define a particular point in space: how far left and right it is, how far up and down. But when we're talking about things that are a distance away from the center and at a certain angle, we can do those in an infinite number of ways. So for example, I gave you on here, I can talk about the point 135. So that is going out 4 and going to 135 degrees. That's out here on my little graph. But I could also get to that by saying going out 4 and going 495 degrees. So 135 is there, add 360 to that, and I'd be back at the same exact location. It's the same point. I can also get to the same point by subtracting 360 degrees from 135, which gives me -225. So basically, start here, go 225 degrees in the negative direction and out 4. Or we could define this by those negative radius values that we saw before. So I could say -4 degrees, or -4 distance in the 315 degree direction. 315 degrees is this way. There's 315 degrees. If I go opposite of that 4 spaces, I end up here. Well, how far apart are these things? Well, these things are 180 degrees or pi radians apart. So the way I did this to get the extra point was I changed my radius to a negative value, and then I added half of a circle. I can do the same thing by changing my radius to negative and subtracting half of a circle and also get another valid value. You can see how you can continue this forever and ever and ever. So let's talk about some different ways we can get the point to 210 degrees. So one way we could do this is we could add 360 degrees. So I could say 210 degrees plus 360 degrees. And that gives me 570 degrees. I could decide to take 210 degrees and subtract 360 degrees. So that would give me 2 and negative 150 degrees. I could also do some negative values. I could say, what if I had a negative 2? Well, if I had a negative 2, I need to go halfway around the circle, so let's add 180. If I add 210 plus 180, I'm going to get negative 2 and 390 degrees. Or I could also do a negative radius and subtract 180, which would give me 30 degrees. All of these things, no matter which way I do it, are going to represent going out 2 spaces. So going out 2 radius spaces, and then going to 210 degrees. So 210 degrees is about right here, about 30 degrees. So it'd be right here. This is the same as going 210 or 570, so an extra lap. Also the same as going 2 and negative 150. So if I go negative 150, I go to here, out 2. It's also the same as going 30 degrees and back 2 spaces, or 390 degrees and back 2 spaces. So again, multiple ways to represent points in polar space. So let's talk about a couple of quick, easy graphs in polar functions. We're not going to do a lot of them right now, just some really simple ones. The graph of r equals 2, when we were graphing things in rectangular, we could graph x equals 3 or y equals 4, right? And we ended up, if it was x equals 3, we ended up with a vertical line, right, at 3. And if we had y is equal to 4, right, then we might have had a horizontal line, right? So when we're doing this in polar, what does a r equals line look like? Because we have in polar, we have r and theta. Well, an r equals line is everything that has a radius of 2. So here I am at a radius of 2, traveling around. Oh, there are all the things at a radius of 2. So what does an r equals thing make? It makes a circle. What does that circle have? A radius of 2. By the way, just so that we're all aware, r equals negative 2 would be the same thing. All the places where the radius is negative 2 would be equal to all the places where the radius is 2. What about a theta equals line? Well, a theta equals line is all the radius values that have the angle pi sixth. Pi sixth is this line right here. So there it is going out, but it's not just in that direction. That's the pi sixth with positive radius. We also have pi sixth values with negative radius. So these make a line through the pole. All right, last thing I kind of want to talk about, and then we're going to get out of here, is distance in polar. So this is the distance formula in polar. If you are curious to how it came to be, if you look at this long enough, you may recognize that it is very similar to the law of cosines. Hooray, law of cosines. The law of cosines said that if we had c squared, it is equal to a squared plus b squared minus 2ab cosine big C. And the way that looked was if I had C here, A and B there, and a little c there. So what I'm doing for this is I've got a certain radius that I've gone out, one radius going out in one direction, and its angle. I've got another radius that's gone out, and I guess we should probably make that in another direction, maybe a little bit. Another radius going out, and its angle. And what they're trying to do is find the distance between these 2 points. Well, to find that distance, that's the same as this setup here. I want to find out this value C. So they square rooted this side, and they found, I wanted to find out what that angle is right here. Well, that angle is theta 2 minus theta 1. And then they have all the other information by the r's, so that's where this formula comes from. So to find the distance between 230 and 120, we're going to take d is going to be equal to the square root of the first radius squared, which is 4, that's 2 squared, plus the second radius squared, that's 25, minus 2 times the radius 1, 2, radius 2, 5, and the cosine of the angle between them. The angle between them is 120 degrees minus 30 degrees, which is 90 degrees. Cosine of 90 degrees is 0. So we end up with just the square root of 29 is the distance between those 2 points. So this kind of gives you oh, I guess you can't see that at the bottom, so hold on. Let's see, there we are. So this kind of gives you a good idea of what the final product, so what the final answer would look like for doing some distance between 2 points. So this gives you a little bit of information. Before I kind of close this video out and give you the last little bit, this is my last call for questions on anything we talked about or anything y'all are just curious about, things you just kind of want to get out there for the good of the order. Go ahead and ask those questions. While y'all are getting those questions in there, if you have any, I'm going to go ahead and tell you I have put up a quest assignment. It is obviously not mandatory. It's just there to enrich you. It's going to cover things from the entirety of Chapter 9 on polar functions, so don't stress about the ones that you don't know how to do yet. I'm going to be putting another resource up on our Google Classroom page later today. I'll also drop it into our Google Drive. It is a thing from CUDA software, so let's see if I can, no, that's not it. These are the notes, by the way, that I've got up, so if you're curious about looking for notes, these are the same things I just went over. They are in our Google Drive already. But I'll find that CUDA software page and I'll put it up for you guys. It might be on here actually. Yeah, I got this one. So this gives you the ability to plot some coordinates, practice kind of plotting some stuff, finding some that are the same point as the one. You don't have to find all of them yet unless you want to practice writing things in funky notation. We don't worry about converting anything yet either direction. We're going to do that in a later lesson. And then this finds the distance between 2 points. So this kind of mostly covered what we needed. And Reed, I do love your logo. You did a great job on it. You're a pretty awesome guy for doing that, and not only doing it for this, but doing it on in such a quick amount of time. So great job on it. It looks really cool. It makes me definitely look a lot more professional. So really appreciate it. Hat tip to Reed for getting that out there for y'all and having me at least look like I kind of know what I'm doing. And Oliver, I'm sure you will hit Grand Champ. I will not hit Grand Champ. I'll be lucky to climb back into Diamond one more time before this thing ends. I've definitely fallen off my game in Rocket League, so um, I hope you guys are doing well. I'll try to get some videos out at least once a week, twice a week if I can. Some of them will not be live. Some of them I'm going to pre-record some stuff. But I do want to do some live things with y'all just so we can have some interaction together as a group as much as possible to kind of give you just some I don't know, chance to have a little bit more community. This is definitely um, important, I think, to try to get together, even though we can't be near each other. And if y'all have concerns about anything, if y'all are having trouble getting information, reliable information about anything related to the school or AP exams, feel free to reach out. One more thing for my students, if you're looking for grades on anything, those grades should be in by the end of this week. I'm going to be kind of doing some grading tonight and tomorrow, um, and maybe even into Thursday if there's a lot more, just to try to make sure everything's updated and corrected. If you notice on Friday that something is incorrect, please reach out to me so I can get that fixed. And y'all take care. I no promises on streaming Rocket League, and I'll talk to you guys later.